don't you ask him what he wants to do, huh?
Now, Video Armageddon.
Video game movies have a long and dreadful history. Sometimes they are mere advertisements, sometimes they're mediocre whitewashed versions of classic games, and sometimes they're just awful.
But for me, it was Tuesday.
But during the summer of 2015 came the bad video game movie to rule them all, and in the theaters, blind them. Introducing the one, the only, Pixels. Pixels is a real dumpster fire of a movie, starring Adam Sandler, who hasn't had a good movie for as long as some people who are watching this have been alive, Kevin James, who's inexplicably been cast as the President of the United States, and Peter Dinklage, who should have known better than to be in this. Pixels is an abomination of a video game movie. It does everything wrong. It's not funny, it doesn't really go anywhere, it harps on negative stereotypes of gamers without making any sort of worthwhile commentary. It literally objectifies women by using a female character as a prize at the end of the film.
So when Lady Lisa actually comes to life, all of his dreams come true.
I spent most of my formative years trying to figure out a way to bring you to life.
And it has almost no redeeming qualities aside from its special effects. Now, Pixels is the disaster that hit it big time, having been advertised for several months, only to crash and burn. However, it's not the only horrible video game movie to have been released in theaters this year. Also released in August was Hitman Agent 47, which at the time of production has a 9% score on Rotten Tomatoes, meaning that 91% of critics who saw the movie hated it. Hitman Agent 47 is apparently so bad that its brightly burning body is serving as a warning beacon to anybody else who thinks that it's a good idea to make a cash grab on an existing franchise. Here's a hint, it's not. But today, we're not talking about the bad movies, no. These abominations can be talked about at some other point in time. Today, I'm going to tell you about video game movies that don't suck. Here are 10 for your viewing pleasure.
I don't remember any of it.
Also, just before we begin, I feel it's worth mentioning that there's a text version of this list over at blackmanandrobin.com if you'd much rather read.
I think what games have opened for regular people is the ability to think differently about things. Whether it's thinking different about the way that they solve problems, whether it's thinking differently about being more open to different approaches for things. I think what games are about is choice.
Number 10. Pixel Poetry. We're starting off with the video game documentary Pixel Poetry. It's a movie that I rather enjoyed, but wasn't entirely sure who it was for as a documentary. I talked about that in my review of the film on blackmanandrobin.com. It's a rather nice look at the way that video games have progressed as a medium over the years. If you used to be into video games and you're looking for a good point to get back into them now, or you've never really known about games and you're looking for a good way to get started, you may want to check out Pixel Poetry. Pixel Poetry is a nice look at where the medium has been, where it is right now, and where it's going.
Under that landfill is a burial site of an entire industry.
Growing up, you always read little rumors about it.
The dreams of a generation buried underneath the garbage. You can hear it screaming or something, I don't know.
Number 9. Atari Game Over. Atari Game Over is the story of E.T. on the Atari 2600, a game that frequently makes lists of the worst games ever made, and for good reason. E.T. was put together in a couple of days for the sake of making fast money. This backfired terribly. You know how we have movie adaptations of games that are just cash grabs? Well, E.T. for the Atari 2600 was the video game equivalent of a cash grab for the blockbuster movie. It made a lot of money initially, but then when people realized how awful the game was, they started returning it en masse. It's often blamed for the great video game crash in the 80s that pulled Atari out of the limelight and made way for Nintendo. And it's not completely the fault of one game, There were many other factors, of course, but E.T. was certainly among them. In Atari Game Over, a crew sets out to find the E.T. cartridges that were reputedly buried in the middle of nowhere in order to dispose of them. For a documentary about digging up garbage, it's surprisingly compelling, and well worth a watch if you're into retro gaming. Atari Game Over is available on Amazon, and it's also available to watch on Netflix.
What do you say, tomorrow, you and I hit the arcade? First game's on me.
Can we play doubles? On the same team?
We're always on the same team.
Number 8. Tron Legacy. I wouldn't consider Tron Legacy to be as strong a film as its predecessor. That said, it's a pretty good video game movie. Released in 2010, it's the sequel to the 1982 Tron, and stars Garrett Hedlund as Sam Flynn, the son of Kevin Flynn, who is Jeff Bridges. Sam's looking for his father and winds up getting pulled into a virtual world where there's an arena and some sort of blood sport involving discs and people burst into these voxels. It's a pretty entertaining film, and what makes it particularly fantastic is its aesthetic. Visually, Tron Legacy may be the best looking movie on this list, though it may have a bit of a competitor in our final entry. Additionally, its soundtrack was done by Daft Punk. The beloved French house duo makes a cameo appearance in the film, and the soundtrack is some of their best work. It has its own unique thing going. It mixes up elements of classical music, Adagio for Tron, and good old-fashioned EDM to make something amazing. Even if you don't like the story, you're going to love the music.
Destiny.
David Lightman was a master at computer games.
Number 7. War Games. War Games, released in 1983, a year after the original Tron, is a rather fun film about a young hacker named David, Matthew Broderick, who jacks his way into a server full of what he thinks are awesome video games. Unfortunately, he's set the world on the path to thermonuclear war. Heavy as it sounds, it's really an entertaining movie. If you need a hearty helping of 80s nostalgia, less than believable hacking, a heavy-handed anti-nuclear war message, and some memorable quotes, "The only winning move is not to play," you'll want to check out War Games.
Playing soon at a theater near you.
Everyone's searching for something. The ability to become someone else. The player might not understand it, but it's there.
Number 6. Free-to-play. Like its title implies, Free-to-Play is free to watch, and it's a feature-length documentary on professional Dota 2 players. I know what you may be thinking. Perhaps you don't care about Dota 2, think esports are lame, or that you think that a documentary about people playing video games is a stupid idea. Well, after watching Free-to-Play, I personally still don't really care about esports, but I have a new respect for those who participate in them, and have to say that Free-to-Play is a surprisingly compelling documentary. Free-to-Play is available to watch on Amazon if you want to pay for it, or if you have a Prime subscription, you get to watch it free. If you'd rather watch it completely for free and legally, it's also available on Steam as well as on YouTube via Valve's official channel. If you want to watch it right now, you can watch it at blackmanandrobin.com along with the article version of this list. Number 5. Tron. The predecessor to Tron Legacy, Tron was released in 1982 and broke much new ground in the world of movies. CGI was still quite new when Tron was released. It's a little obvious in the film, especially when you compare it to just about every other modern movie that employs CGI, but in spite of its age, Tron is still a marvel to behold. The story of Tron is pretty simple. The lovable software engineer Kevin Flynn has had some of his video games stolen by a former coworker, who took all the glory and the paychecks for them. Flynn pursues justice and, in the process, finds himself pulled into the grid, a sort of cyberspace inside computers inhabited by programs which are sentient. It's a little surreal, a little cheesy, but it's completely full of heart. If you're after a fun digital adventure, I recommend taking a look at the original Tron. Number 4. Summer Wars. The Mamoru Hosoda-directed Summer Wars is not only a great video game movie, but a fantastically enjoyable animated film in general. Summer Wars is about Kenji Koiso, a high school student with a knack for computers who winds up getting bamboozled into posing as a boyfriend to Natsuki Shinohara, Along the way, he sets off a chain reaction that causes chaos in the world of Oz, a sort of video game social network, and unless he fixes things, an asteroid probe is going to collide with a nuclear power plant, causing death and destruction. That escalated quickly, didn't it? While Summer Wars can be a little bit heavy at times, it is on the whole a very fun movie. The ending of that film is one of the most exciting endings to any movie that I've ever seen. It's so triumphant that if you don't smile at the end of Summer Wars, I'll assume that you've had all the joy and wonder surgically extracted from your body. Besides being fun, however, it has a great soundtrack, a very well-written story, and surprisingly well-fleshed-out characters, and coming from Madhouse, it has fantastic visuals. Even if you don't really care for anime, you'll want to take a look at Summer Wars. Coming from Mamoru Hosoda, it's not surprising that the movie is so great. His other work includes Wolf Children and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time.
My name's Wreck-It Ralph. I'm gonna wreck it! 30 years I've been doing this. I can fix it! It's hard to love your job when no one else seems to like you for doing it.
You're just the bad guy who wrecks the building.
Number 3. Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph is a movie about a fellow named Ralph. He's a character in a game called Fix-It Felix. Ralph has a pretty simple job: wreck things, and then get wrecked by Felix. Because he's a villain, nobody respects him, and he's an outcast in spite of being a nice guy. Ralph's just doing his job in the game. Now, Wreck-It Ralph earned a spot in this list for being a funny and surprisingly heartwarming film. It's filled to the brim with references to classic games, and there are amusing gags, but what Wreck-It Ralph succeeds so wonderfully at is delivering a positive message about doing the best that you can at your work, even if your working conditions kinda suck, and that you should also have respect for people who do jobs that you may perceive to be beneath you. Even though it's a kids' movie, it's really enjoyable for everybody. Number 2. The Last Starfighter. The Last Starfighter is a lot of things. It's cheesy, silly, absurd, but it's also surprisingly fun. If you enjoy 80s cheese, perhaps a finely aged 1984 science fiction flavor of 80s cheese, you will have plenty of fun with The Last Starfighter. The film's premise is that an arcade machine in the middle of nowhere is actually a testing system created by an alien race. It was sent to Earth in order to find the best pilots to aid them in their intergalactic war. The arcade game leads the aliens to take Alex Rogan, Lance Guest, the best player at the game, on a wild adventure through the stars. It's a rather light-hearted take on a video game movie, and it's well worth seeing. Fun fact, The Last Starfighter has quite the place in the history of CGI. It marks the first use of integrated CGI, in which computer-generated images are used in place of physical models.
The Last Starfighter.
Number 1. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. In my completely objective opinion, this is the best video game movie ever made, even though Scott Pilgrim vs. the World isn't explicitly about games. Rather, it's about a dude named Scott Pilgrim who starts dating a cool girl named Ramona Flowers.
Hi, I was thinking about asking you out, but then I realized how stupid that would be.
That's okay. You just need to sign for this, alright?
So do you want to go out sometime?
The thing is, Ramona previously dated some other folks, and 7 of them have banded together to fight Scott. If he wants to date Ramona, he has to beat them as though they were video game bosses. It's a great postmodern comedy that makes good use of intertextuality to establish a relationship between games, comics, and film. If you enjoyed such films as Wayne's World and other goofy comedies, you'll want to check out Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Also, the film was based on a comic series by Brian Lee O'Malley. It's a pretty amusing read. Also, it would be a mistake not to mention the fantastic video game based on the film. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, was released on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 a few years back, and it is the bee's knees.
Prepare to feel the wrath of the League of Evil Exes.
So, we started this list with a documentary about bad adaptations of film to game, and ended it with a movie that has a good game adaptation. What do you think? Is this list and my entire taste in movies trash, or are you going to watch each and every one of these? Let us know what you think, and hit us up and follow at Blackman and Robin for all the latest game and movie news, reviews, previews, and interviews. You can follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my own possibly awesome views on such things. Be sure to keep watching the Blackman and Robin Irregular Game Show, as soon we'll be doing a follow-up on our video about city skylines and income inequality, and we'll be announcing the winner of the $20 Steam gift card.
Scott Pilgrim
children versus the world.
Maybe next time we don't date the girl with 11 evil ex-boyfriends.
7.
Oh, that's not that bad.